The Athene Real Talk Podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk Podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World-famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. I would not want to take you on in a video game.
Athene, been meaning to ask this question to you for a long ass time. Do you think a CEO deserves the money he or she gets compared to a worker's employee? Also, which person do you think works harder? Let me tell you something, Onion Helmet. Do you think that mine workers in China that work 14 hours a day deserve to earn 1/50 of what you earn a day? Do you think they deserve that? Thing is, when you think about the world and when you think about what's right and wrong doesn't really have a place in that. What matters is the reality. And the reality is that the world is unfair. And the reason why CEOs make so much money, and the reason why miners in China make so little, and the reason why workers make the money they make, is because that's how the world works. Is it right? Is it wrong? It doesn't matter. It's the reality. So what do I think? I think that people need to, on a fundamental level, realize and look at the world from a bigger perspective and look at the world for what it is. And there's a lot of things going on in the world that are unfair, and we are in a position where we can make a difference. So if I was a CEO and I would be in that position, I would rake in that dough and I would do something positive with it. I would actually try and contribute. The problem in the world is not so much the system and all the structure, but it's the mindset of the people that contain and that make part of the society. So is it right or wrong? It's not the right question. The right question is what you can do to make a difference and move forward as a species. That's the right question to ask. Because a lot of people can easily get sidetracked and look at the things that are bad in the world and go and point the fingers there, but that is all part of the problem. That behavior is part of the problem. The problem is not so much the CEO's salary. The problem is pinpointing that and not taking action yourself. You are the only problem and you are the only solution to that problem, because that's your circle of influence. Everything else is circle of concern. It's like looking at the moon and say, why is the moon not a square? It's just useless. It's a waste of time. If you would say, like, it would be so much cooler if the sun was a fucking square, because I played a lot of Minecraft and the sun is a square in Minecraft, so why not in the real world? It would mean so much to me. People just think you're fucking crazy. And it's really the same thing, like really questioning yourself, all those things, rather than taking action and making a difference. Just do what you believe can make a difference in the world and be very practical about it, and you will have been much more part of the solution than part of the problem. Do you understand? It's very, very, very important what I said here. It's more important than any other fucking question you have. It's the awareness that things are bad in the world and you can make a difference. And the question is not why the world is bad and all that shit. The question you should ask yourself is, what can you do to improve it? And that's why you will never really see me bashing the world and going like, oh, this and that. I will always try to inspire people to action, to take action, rather than to go like, oh, the world is shit. And that's what I don't like about Mr. Robot, for example. They love to blame the structure and society, but no, be part of the solution. That's the way forward. Is if each one of you guys actually, rather than starting to circle jerk around, take action and try to make a difference. And that translates into the small things and can go to bigger things. And I keep repeating this message because it's the most important one. It's more important than any other answer I could give you guys. Oh yeah, can you explain the neuroscience behind willpower? Of course, it's just a theory that I have. It's what I understood when I read a lot about neuroscience. And basically, the way your brain works is very simple. Consciousness is very simple. You have all the neural activity in the brain, and that neural activity brings about what you are right now. It's literally that simple. And what that basically means, if you think about it, it has quite some repercussions if you really think about it deeply. And I find it fascinating that nobody in the neuroscientific community has made that connection, because it is actually pretty paradigm shifting. So you have all those neural circuits that become active and inactive, and depending on what is active, that is what you are. And it goes really far, because you might think, okay, what is so interesting about that doesn't really give a lot of information? There is no center in consciousness. There is no core. There is no command centers giving out commands to the rest of your brain saying like, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. No, your actions and what you are just automatically comes about based on what neural networks are active at a certain moment. If your neural network that is responsible for eating food becomes more active, you want to eat. And so with everything else. They have done an experiment, and this is really fucking fascinating, you guys gotta look it up, where they split the brain. One eye is connected to one part of the brain, the other eye is connected to the other part of the brain, and the left and the right hemisphere cannot interact and communicate with each other. And the thing is, they basically create two people. One person has the ability to talk and has certain actions. The other side has other actions. So depending on which parts of your brain are responsible for certain things. But what's really fascinating is that split brain patients are not aware that their brain has been splitted at all. They don't know it. They still feel like they're normal. Even though if you tell them to put their pants on, they will only put their pants on one leg and literally think that they put their pants on. And what's really fascinating about that is your consciousness really just emerges from your neural activity. And you can split it in all different parts and it will just express itself as if that's what it is, and it's that simple. As a result, when you put that into practice, you are merely your neural activity. Your will is merely your drive to reduce the dissonance between those neural networks. So if someone is coming and shouting at you, the reason why you want to leave the room or punch him in the face is not so much because he's shouting at you, but rather because the shouting is represented in your brain as a neural network, and that neural network is actually in dissonance with other parts of your brain. The other parts of the brain wants to make it resonate, and the way they do that is by either removing it from your consciousness by moving room or whatever, or punching it in the face. What is also very important to know is that when you think about it, what is dissonance? Because that's also something I've been thinking about when I was thinking about Athene's theory of everything. When you have two waves that dissonance, they cancel each other out. So basically, dissonance in your environment makes you less alive, and resonance makes you more alive. It's not always the case, but it's just a simple idea where it comes from. So when you see light, and you see light canceling each other out and just losing the frequency and just being translated into pure energy, like what is very fascinating about that is that we just basically evolved from light, and we're just very complex machines that seek out resonance and try to avoid dissonance, because dissonance literally cancels out our own existence. Isn't that fascinating? If you really go very deep, that quantum mechanics and the way that waves work and all that shit is actually connected to what we are. And that's why we try to avoid dissonance, because on a very fundamental level, it actually means parts of your neural activity would die out and cancel itself out. And that's why having two different IDs, in a sense, that are dissonating each other, cancel each other out. And that's why you're amplifying one ID in order to be able to be stronger and really override the ID that dissonates. And that actually, when you really go to the core, that it just has to do with brainwaves and how we want to grow and expand. It's very simplified, of course, but the core ID is there. Our willpower is merely the drive to reduce dissonance within our neural networks. And I've never read about this shit. This connection, I've never read about it. Although I've read articles about how consciousness are the manifestation of brainwaves and shit like that, and studies about that are linked in the documentary Gods in the Neurons. In the description, you will see a lot of papers that we based the documentary on. Chuck 150k says, gotta say, man, the first time I watched you, I thought you were an obnoxious troll, but after your discussion of consciousness, I have a new respect for you. Chuck 150k, thank you. I will explain you something, Chuck, and maybe some other people that are watching the stream can relate to it. But basically, if you want to build a following and inspire people on the internet, you cannot do that through, like, it's very hard. You can, but it's very hard to do it through intellectual platform. You have a lot of people that really try to make a difference, that have very similar ideas to us, but because they cannot project in the current state of society and how everything is based on entertainment, they actually do not compromise and understand that if they want to reach an audience, they have to find a connection with their audience. And my connection was games. But the problem with playing games, so many people play games. So if you want to create a connection, you want to create an audience, you have to make sure it was like that back in the days. Now it's a lot different. But back in the days, controversy really worked very well. And trolling was a very powerful way of getting really big on YouTube. And that is why I did Athene, and that's why I did Best Pilot in the World. Because I knew, and that is not even crazy what I'm saying, there's actually a video online where I explain the strategy where I'm going to become the best pilot in the world. That was before I was best pilot in the world. And then I would be able to reach a big audience and do good things. And trolling and creating controversy really helped to spark talk on forums. And that is really from the beginning, it's always been my agenda to inspire people to do something with that audience. That we did iPower back in the days, we did net neutrality fights, we did so much things back in the days that really, point that this was always been the case. But now with live streaming and with Real Talk and with the charity stuff, not only has the scene changed and trolling doesn't work anymore, because if you think about it, the troll aspect is something that requires a certain level of intelligence to get. You have to be able to reflect and to see a situation through the eyes of another person. You have to be able to look at yourself as a third person. But the problem, since the internet has become younger and younger and younger, people like the audiences, the biggest audience on YouTube and such, and even on Twitch, lacks the ability to look at the situation from a third person. So sarcasm is very hard to understand for most people because they're too young. If you go to a kid of 12 years old and you try to explain them sarcasm, or you show my video, they will just think this guy's a douchebag. And even you say like, no, this guy is doing this as an act, they won't understand it. And that is the problem. That's why I had to shift my act, because not doing so, what it basically did was just me shooting in the foot. And I tried to do it with League and it really backfired like crazy. And even with Hearthstone, it's semi-backfired. Even though the Athene persona, like the really troll, the pro gamer, is really one of the most entertaining personas in my opinion on the internet. Aside from me being Athene, just looking at it, I find the quality humor, I don't see that so much on the internet. Most entertainment on the internet is very one-dimensional. It's very simple. But like really the troll persona, we're breaking records and then just laugh at haters and stuff and really creating a level of controversy. That's really the best humor there is, for me at least. But the problem is that the audience cannot really absorb it. And that is why a lot of people that really didn't like me back in the days, as they grow older, they start seeing and understanding Athene. And they go like, this guy's not really a douchebag. He's just a smart guy that really wants to make a difference. And actually that persona, you start appreciating the persona. And the reason why I'm explaining all this is because I know right now there is people watching the chat, watching the stream, that still think I'm a fucking douchebag. Because they've watched my videos and really think this guy is really an obnoxious, full of himself, like narcissistic fucking douchebag, thinks so much about himself, fuck him. He thinks he's the best, he's not the best, but it doesn't make sense. The concepts and the ideas, when you think about it, they don't make sense. How does that even work, a best gamer in the world? It's absurd, but still yet, because of ego dynamics and because of a lack of insight and not being able to reflect, because your brain is not capable to do so, they just have a very negative idea, and that's why Athene just doesn't work anymore. And then you might say, but what about the new videos? When you look at the new videos that we make that people really like, there is no trolling in them. There is non-trolling in them at all. It's just ownage and trying to push the right buttons. Same with when I was doing the series with the more reality TV here, we're losing subscribers, even though like with Nolan, the micro penis, Ricardo and stuff, when you look at that content, it was fucking golden. But the reason why it didn't work is because people didn't have the ability. Like most people are very young, watch that, think like this guy's a douchebag, this guy's a douchebag. They don't even understand the subtle humor behind it because they take everything serious. So that is why we went back to Athene and we revamped Athene in a very different way. And we try to be very careful with the way we profile and we bring things forward, because a lot of young people are easily rubbed the wrong way, and that's why YouTubers that really target very young YouTubers really blow up like crazy. But the problem is it's not compatible with my audience, and that's why I have such a hard time establishing myself on YouTube. But the new YouTube content with WoW has worked really well because it works with my old school audience and also works with a new audience. Younger people watch that, find it cool, they go like, oh, they own and stuff. But add trolling to it, or add me being really cocky and such, and suddenly they don't like me anymore. It's like, oh, who's that fucking asshole? So yeah, it's just stuff we think about. I just wanted to explain that because people have to be aware of all the dynamics, and even though everybody is unique, you can still see quite some trends Invelt says, Athene, I tend to discriminate against immigrants that don't want to learn Italian when they stay in Italy. Am I wrong? Invelt, I will give a really good example about that. I'm gonna say some fucking bad shit, controversial shit right now. But it's important to be aware of it, because it's the same here in Belgium. In Belgium, you have like a Vlaams Belang, which is like the extreme right party, and they say everybody needs to speak Dutch when they come in. Everyone. My first question to them, if I would be in a debate with them, is like, what about the Jews in Antwerp city that make up for one of the biggest revenue in Antwerp because of the diamond trade? Do they also have to start all learning Dutch or they get kicked out? Because that's the thing. If you think about it, whenever you ask about wearables and all that shit, do Jews have to change their wearables as well? And then it's suddenly like, no, of course not. They're integrated. How does that work? The problem is not the clothes. The problem is not the language. The problem is the economical underlying factors that make up people having to get into criminality because they're poor. It's a financial, social, economical situation. It's not just their religion or their looks or this or that. It's more complex. If people of other countries come here for a better future and they live in poverty or whatever, of course you're going to have them more into criminality. But then like when you ask the question, let's say Bill Gates wants to move to Belgium, let's say for example, and he wants to invest $1 billion and create 1,000 jobs or 10,000 or fucking 100,000 jobs. You're going to tell Bill Gates, no, you're going to learn Dutch or get the fuck out of here. No, you won't. Because he has the money. It's a financial thing. It's an economical thing. And a lot of people don't realize that. And you have to be aware that when it comes to those problems, the problem is not that they don't want to integrate. The problem is that there is a culture gap and there is a poverty gap. And all those things come together and bring about issues that frustrates you. And therefore, you start backwards rationalizing it in a simple way. It must be because they're fucking Moroccans. Or it's Islam. But that's not how simple problems are. A lot of the times it is really like a lack of insight. A lot of the times it's really a lack of insight. It's you grow up through your own culture and you see the world through your own eyes. And you literally lack the ability to see the world through other people's eyes. And that is something you have to acquire by growing, by experience. And that is one of the biggest issues, because if you only learn to see the world through your own eyes, you tend to really start to impose that on other people. And that is the problem. That's literally the problem. That's the problem of almost all conflicts. It's exactly that. Your inability to see the world through other people's eyes and impose your own view, or get the views of other people imposed on you. But with tolerance and acceptance and respect, you can get along. It says, Gigi Holt says, Athene, you say that our beliefs is emotionally attached. How do I do that? How do I emotionally attach myself from my ego? You mean detach? You have talked about it a little bit before, but I really would like to achieve that. You mean detach, right? So, the ego is a mechanism of the brain. It's like a defense mechanism. When you're feeling threatened, you get like a psychological wall that blocks you from outside beliefs, to put it that way. Whether those beliefs can cause pain or whatever, doesn't matter. It just blocks you. And some people are only that wall. They have nothing else. And behind that wall is a very hurt child, to put it very simple. A person that has a very low self-esteem, and the only way to cope with the world is to have a very strong ego and be very, very strong and have all those fake confidence and layers in order to survive, to have that kind of alpha dominance. But behind it, there is nothing. And those people have a very big problem, because in order to really grow as a human being and really grow as a person from a more rational framework, you literally need to go to the core of yourself and build from there, because your ego means nothing. It literally is just a facade. And I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about. Even though I have to say, if I would have to explain this to aliens, I think this explanation wouldn't really mean so much. But to a lot of people, they understand because they can relate to it. And the ego also takes you away from just being who you are. Because who you are is not your ego. Who you are is literally the self, the core. And some people feel terrible because they get a very bad youth, because their parents were shit, because they didn't get enough warmth or love while they grew up. But the thing is, you can overcome those things and you can really grow as a person. Self-esteem has a lot to do with it as well. And the reason why I'm talking about those subjects is because I've seen it a lot with the people I've interacted with as I grew up. And it's hard for me to relate to it because I didn't really have that. My mom was really great for me. So I don't really have that really low core self-esteem. So I don't really have so much the need of a strong ego. To me, it's futile. But I do understand that some people have really serious issues with that. So detaching yourself from the ego, the thing is, if you're completely emotionally wired and your ego is who you are and your story is who you are and that's what you believe, then you're emotionally invested in it. And that's a big issue, because when I didn't give you the information about you are not your ego, you are not that wall, this is not who you are, you're your neural activity, and your neural activity is not that. It's infactional, it's a flawed paradigm, it's a primitive concept that you acquire and you believe to be you. It really slows you down to grow as an individual, to grow as a person. And being aware of those, you can literally detach, and through mindfulness, you can consistently detach yourself more and more from that ego and become more and more who you are. That will really make you highly more flexible with your environment, will make you more happy, will make you more strong. Like the confident will not come from a wall, it will just come from a certain state. And the more you have thought about the world, about life, about important ideas and concepts, the stronger the confidence will just come from who you are, rather than just simulating certain human interactions to pretend to be like that. And that's why a lot of times when people are really very egoic in the chat, I can have a Skype call with them and crush them completely. They stand no chance, because I'm not there having a fight with them. Like, ego works against other egos, but when you don't have an ego, you just penetrate it immediately. It just crumbles. And people that are only their ego, they can lie to themselves for a long time in their environment and it can work. But when you're against people that are very insightful, you're basically powerless. Is that the word? I think that's the best way to put it. And it's important to be aware of it, because the biggest strength you can get is not from your ego, but it's more from the core understanding of what you are and having thought a lot about beliefs. And then it doesn't matter. If someone tells you something you agree with, you are in a position where you can, without issues, agree. But someone with an ego cannot do that. And that's why you're always stronger. Because if the person with an ego gives you a good argument, you say like, okay, that's great. And next time you can use that argument for other people. And that's why an egoless mindset is so much more powerful, because you keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Not because you want to become stronger, but just because your state is so much more consistent and makes so much more sense. And that is why growing your ego can literally slow you down in growing as a person. It can also, in certain situations, help you grow. If you really have such a low self-esteem and you have crazy social anxiety and all that shit, ego can help you to have a fake persona, and then from that fake persona you can get a level of confidence out of that, because it helps you to wire. But overall, I would rather just focus on a structured, rational foundation and really think about things and really do it rather from the bottom up rather than from a flawed construct. I don't know how many people understood what I'm talking here about. Is this Chinese to you guys? Because I think people that can relate to it, it will make sense, but people that can't relate with it, maybe I'm just talking some really weird shit. Athene, how can you learn to think outside the box? The way I look at things, like the way I do it, is very simple. When I'm given a problem, I look at all the possible solutions, literally all of them. And then I start filtering it out. But when you look at all possible solutions, it's important that you don't let your social conditioning limit you in what those possible solutions are. So it's about seeing the entire array of solutions rather than just looking at the specific ones that are more in front of you.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheneWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheneLive and follow The Real Athene on Snapchat.